Okay, how's everybody doing tonight? Hey, we're on the wind down. Believe it or not, you almost made it. One of the faculty here in business, like week one, he goes, 15 weeks left. It's not that bad, hopefully, for you. But anyway, we're going to go over all the stuff from here to the end tonight. But before we do, I want to make some announcements. One is, hey, we're on Snapchat. We've joined the 21st century. Anybody else on Snapchat? Wow, cool. Well, we do daily stories. That's all we do, by the way. That's all we're doing, by the way, is daily stories. Those of you that don't know what Snapchat is, the way businesses are using it, I'll talk about that first, because that's what I'm more familiar with, and colleges, is they do what's called stories, meaning you can post, like we're using events going on throughout the day or throughout the week, with little comments to students so they can read it. A story lasts for 24 hours, and then it, keeps just dumping. It dumps pictures and text after 24 hours. Now, you guys will help me on this one, those of you that use Snapchat a lot. On the end user, the consumers use it to send stuff, pictures, text, funny stuff, whatever, right, to people, and probably other stuff, I'm guessing. And it deletes it within, 10 seconds? Up to 10 seconds, right? You can delete it sooner than that. What's funny about it is, to me, is, when it's first started, how long has it been out? 2, 3 years? 2 years? 2 years? Something like that. Okay. Students, especially high school students, are like, yes, it's deleted in 10 seconds or deleted in 5 seconds, but they forgot to think about the fact that you can do a screenshot of the phone on iPhone and Android both. So that 10 seconds can be saved for infinity, basically, and then posted everywhere. So even though it does delete it from the app within 10 seconds, that doesn't mean the picture's gone, because people don't have to be too smart to figure out how to do a screenshot. Now, as you can probably imagine, there's definitely R-rated, X-rated stuff on Snapchat, right? But there are some positive uses for Snapchat, which is, since literally, it's the #1 social media platform out there right now. From high schoolers to college students to myself, grandmas and grandpas are using Snapchat now to communicate to their kids. It used to be text message. No, not anymore. It's Snapchat. Because with Snapchat, you can also send videos, short videos. They've even had some new features to it. Like today, I learned with version 2.0, you can swipe on a picture and add in different logos or icons. Like a few of the ones I added today, added the RVC icon. It found it all automatically and could bring it in, some nice graphics. And so the other thing that's added is large font text in the middle of a picture you can put in there now. And so some cool things. So anyway, if you're on Snapchat, you can add us by either scanning that picture on your phone, Snapchat phone app, and it'll add us automatically to your Snapchat environment, and then you can view our daily story. Or you can click on, if you're on a mobile device, you can click on that link, which will also add you to add us to your Snapchat environment. So I'm learning a little bit about it, still learning more. I notice a lot of people don't use both of these, by the way, and that's something you can use to share with people easily to where they can add you. I see a lot of people put it on their, the picture anyway, on their Twitter profile and a link. That's what we've done on ours. So the college has a Snapchat profile as well. When we use it, they use it for daily stories of events. Kids sign on to different colleges. So avail yourself to that if you're on Snapchat. I'd like to get some followers. We just added yesterday, so if that'd be awesome if you get some people looking at it. That'd be great, and spread the word. Jobs. There's a number of jobs posted this week, in the last 2 days actually. Ingersoll's one just today was posted. IT technician internship and they're wanting director of IT be reporting to the director of IT to set up maintenance and support of both network and end user hardware and software. A student of mine got hired there a year ago. I just will tell you, if you're interested in it, you will probably go through about 4 or 5 interviews before you get hired, because they take it pretty seriously, because you have to meet all the team and everybody that works there. A lot of stuff they work on there is top secret. It's, need to know type bases, governmental contracts, FBI contracts, stuff like that. So, but it's an awesome place to work. I mean, I talked to a student into applying for it a year ago, is for programming. He didn't think he could do it. And I said, yeah, stuff you don't know, they'll teach you how to do it. So he went, he drug his feet and went. He interned for half a semester. Then they offered him a full-time job, even though he's finishing up his last 2 years at NIU to get his bachelor's. They're working around his school schedule, and he's working full-time at Ingersoll now as a programmer. But one of the cool things he mentioned was how everybody kind of like works together, just shares knowledge, and is real open to help. And so it would be a great job if anybody's interested, a great internship possibility for you. Also, this is for RVC graduates. I know there's a few. How many's graduating in May? Okay, so you'd be in this bucket here. This is for RVC graduates only, or soon-to-be graduates. It's an associate developer at Tycomics, is needing an associate developer on a foundation of general developing skills. Anything you don't know, they will teach you, like VB is one of them, JavaScript is one of them, I believe, HTML, a little bit of PHP. And anything you don't know, they'll teach you. But it's an associate level developer, entry level, be a good pay position, and they're looking for an RVC graduate. So if you're interested in programming or getting into programming in a full-time basis, which I think you are, this might be something to look into. The email for both of you I just mentioned are at the bottom of the post on myrvc.org. where I would suggest putting together a 1-page resume, sending it to the individual in the post. And I believe the next one on multiple job positions is there's still some open there. So click on that and read it as well. But there's some, about 7 or 8 jobs in the last 2 weeks. The other one that just came in today, it's not posted yet. I just got off the phone with them at 4 o'clock, was there's a company in town needing help with video, taking pictures and converting to slideshow with music in the background, and like YouTube type stuff. I asked, they'll probably be doing like Periscope. They'll be going into that a little bit. I talked to them about using that. Their CEO is going to do a once a month thing. So if you're interested in that side, it'd be more on a graphical, social media, web end. They're wanting a student to come in and that's kind of in that area, your interest is in that area already. See me after class, and if you're interested in that, they can probably start using you like tomorrow, and then you'd be busy all summer. And so it'd be a good experience if you're wanting to go into web, social, or graphics side of things. Questions on anything I mentioned so far as far as jobs? It's a lot of jobs. That's pretty awesome. This time of semester, generally don't hear of that many coming in. So I'm not complaining. That's a good thing. And as a faculty member, as a teacher, I get excited about getting students connected to jobs that's going to help them, be successful. And that's what it's all about. This Saturday and next Saturday is a iOS Bootcamp Preview. Bootcamp is going to be offering Summer Session 1. And just got a couple more to fill that up. So if you're interested in iOS Bootcamp, this Saturday we'll be creating a web browser, your own web browser. And if you have an iPad or iPhone, you can bring it to the session. It's just an hour from 10 to 11 downstairs in 152. If you don't have an iPad or iPhone, we'll be using a simulator to create it anyway. But if you do have one, you can bring it and you'll actually take away an app you created that'll be yours on your device. The following Saturday, next Saturday, we'll be creating a unique notepad app to where you can add in notes, grocery list, things of that nature. But there is an RSVP at a bit.ly link there. If you just remember the bit.ly link, and it's iOS Bootcamp 16. And so I'd love to have you come to that if you're interested at all in iOS. It'd be a good thing to come. It doesn't cost anything. It's just 1 hour and you're in and out. So questions on that? All right. This week, the reading is a PowerPoint or PDF. We'll actually be going over some of it tonight. The quiz is also over that PDF. The quiz is mainly covering the questions on troubleshooting, which is the first part of the PDF for that reading. The Troubleshooting Lab, we will be watching a video. There's a little snapshot of it called Help Desk. We'll be watching that before we go into our lab. Where in the lab, you basically will be doing two things tonight. You'll be it's called a troubleshooting exercise. You will, this exercise has real world scenarios. So I've got a lot of user issues here on this sheet of papers here. And you will both be a network admin and also an end user that has problems. So you will be a troubleshooter and a troubleshootee both tonight. And so that's a fun one. A lot of the issues that the troubleshooting the users have are real world issues. Some of them are not all computer related or network related. Some of them are, they don't really like IT too much. Some of them are, they're a little, a little stressed out and not very patient. And so, but real stuff you come against in IT all the time. And so that's a fun one. Hopefully you enjoy that. And what we'll do is 3 and 3, perfect. We'll have 3 of you step out when we do it. 3 of you will stay in here. I'll coach you on your user issues. And then I'll have the troubleshooters come in. And I think I put a troubleshooter sheet in front of everybody, did I not? So I'll have you put your name on that now so you won't forget. Put your name where it says troubleshooter. You won't know who the user is, so I'll pair you up with the user. Once you're finished with this, in fact, you can, while we're going through this first part, if you want, you can go ahead and go into week 12 lab and submit your name, just so you won't forget at the end. Week 12 reading quiz, or the week 12 quiz is over week 12 reading. I want to mention that. The network calls lab, it is due this Sunday. And if you, even if you only have one, that's awesome. Submit it. If you have more than one, I tell you to zip it together and put it in, submit it here in this section for week 12 calls, or 12 network calls. How many's gotten at least one response back? At least one? Okay. So a little bit of work to do here. So it is Thursday. So hopefully tomorrow you get on the call and or emails and email some folks. But as long as you get at least one back, that'd be awesome. This slide goes over the following 3 weeks we have left of class. Next week, we'll be doing our last lab together on creating users in a Windows environment, in a Mac environment, and in a Linux environment, creating network users. That's week 13. Week 14 is the first night of presentations. If your last name begins O through Z, you'll be presenting on week 14, which is 2 weeks from tonight. And you'll be turning in your research paper as well. Where it says 14 research paper presentation, that's where you will be submitting your paper. You won't be submitting your presentation. I'll be collecting those the night of your presentation, which I'm guessing most of you are using like a PowerPoint or a Open Office or something like that. Week 15, last names A through N, same time, same bat channel, and you'll be submitting your research paper that week in week 15 research paper presentation. That night I will be buying pizza and having you guys bring other snacks that you want to bring, except for non-alcohol. We can't bring alcoholic beverages. It's the only thing we can't bring here. Everything else, you're good to go. Root beer's good. Root beer's awesome. You can do that. Okay, questions on schedule between now and week 15? Yes.
Just want to confirm the dates. So week 14, that's April 21st.
Let's see here. Let's look at the schedule on my phone. If I close this out, it's going to stop it. All right, let's see here. So we are in we are April 7th now, right? Next week's the 14th, should be April 14th, which is week 13. The 21st is, well, I'm gonna have an extra week in here then. So I'm gonna have to I think I'm gonna have to put in a week for Linux distros. So let me see here. We'll have week 14 be Linux distros. So those of you who are freaking out like, oh man, I have 3 weeks, you actually have 4 weeks. And so I will change that. So let's do where it says week 14, which is actually, let's see, 12 this week, 13, 14, 15. 16 should be May, what is it? May 5th, is that right? Yeah, okay. So next week, we are going to do create the users. That will be April 14th, right? The 21st, which has up here as being the first presentation, we will do Linux distros on that night, and we'll bump everything up accordingly. So thanks for mentioning that.
Presentation will happen on April 28th.
Yeah, so your first presentation is going to be the folks whose last names end in O through Z is actually going to be the 28th. Is that right? Yeah, 28th of April. So we're on the 7th, so you've got 3 weeks, 3 weeks from tonight, actually. All right, and then last presenters is the last week of the semester before finals, that's when I generally do it, which is May 5th. May 5th if your last name ends A through N. So I'll correct the schedule, so thanks for bringing it up. Cool. Any other questions? All right, cool. Thank you. All right, so how many's ever had to help somebody troubleshoot something on a network? Okay, all right. It can be, stressful, right? Because depending on the user's technical aptitude and their own stress level and your own stress level on how many times you've helped them with maybe the same problem over and over again, depends upon a lot of outcome. And so what we're going to go over here tonight in the slides is basically the methodologies to troubleshoot any problem that you might have, and also to document those problems, all right? And that's important. So one of the first things is you need to proceed as much as possible through logical and methodically through the process. Even though you've done it umpteen times before maybe, it's good to start the same every time. Does that make sense? Now, follow the steps. We'll go over tonight what those are. Use experience when necessary. And yes, sometimes that experience will have to do with an individual that's a repeat person coming back with the same issue, okay? And logically approach things. This can prevent wasteful time, consuming efforts, unnecessary software. I've seen people like reinstall their operating system, all their software, and all I had to do was like an update on something or a setting on an application or something. And so, just take your time. Also, too, one of the things that's not mentioned in these steps tonight is I recommend this strongly, too. Ask for help. Ask for help from your colleagues that you work with to look at something. They might not even be in your area, but I think that's a good thing, because sometimes people that don't work in your area of expertise can shed light on things that maybe you don't see. Does that make sense? Because you're literally neck deep in it, right? And you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And, they mentioned something like, say, I noticed that their cord was a little frayed in the back of their computer when I walked up. They might not even be a computer person. You look back and go, well, I didn't even notice that. Oh, and you find out, it's a Cat 5 cord was needed to be replaced. And you're getting ready to do something major or something. And so something as simple as that, before you do anything drastic, I always have, or you get stuck, ask for help. And that's not in the steps here, but that's what I recommend to you. So, first step in troubleshooting is identifying the problem. Makes sense, right? Gather as much information as you can. Because when people say it just doesn't work, that's not good enough. Okay, that doesn't help, right? It might help them to tell you it doesn't work, but it's not going to help you figure out what's going on. So you got to pull that information sometimes from them, or get information around them to determine the issues. Okay, and we'll talk about how to do that. Identify symptoms, question users around them, not just that person. Determine if anything's changed, whether in the network and software updates, people, computers, whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever's changed is important. It can be something non-technical that's changed that affects technical things. An example would be a ballast was replaced in a light, but it blew a surge of power over on a switch that caused it to blow last night. That switch to blow, and it doesn't work this morning. And you're like, okay, I didn't know the ballast was changed last night. That's what I'm saying. That literally you don't think it had nothing to do with it, but it did, because when the ballast blew, it also blew the switch. So by finding out everything that goes on around your workplace, around that area, is going to help if anything's changed. And initially, when you find all these information of things that's changed, you might not initially put all of it together. It might take a bit to figure it out. And that's where it helps to kind of maybe get help from other people, or brainstorm with other people some issues that are going on. And then after the problem, establish the theory of a probable cause, like question the obvious, okay, cord frayed, is the computer turned on? That's a good one, right? You'll see that tonight in the video. That's always generally a good one. And believe it or not, people have called the help desk and called IT about a computer problem, and it's not even turned on. It's a black screen. I see a big black screen. I can't click on anything. Is the computer turned on? Now, how do you ask that without making them feel totally stupid, right? But that happens, all right? We'll talk about how to do that. Then troubleshoot, continuing here, testing the theory, determine the cause. After you figured out, the problem, figure out, okay, some type of theory to confirm what the next steps are. If the theory isn't confirmed, meaning your theory is wrong, go to another theory, escalate it, keep going. Don't give up, keep thinking about it. But the best way to do it, I think, is to step back and really take your time. It's actually gonna get solved quicker, believe it or not, by taking your time and being as calm as possible and patient as possible, which I know sometimes is hard to do, especially when people are real upset. And we'll talk about how to solve that, how to help that situation. Then look at establishing an action plan from your theory, implementing solution, or escalating it. Escalating it could be, we've got to submit a ticket to the software vendor because we can't fix it. That's an honest answer. And say we're submitting a software ticket and figuring out what's, getting some more expertise in here to help. All right? Because you're not going to always be able to fix it. IT is not going to always be able to fix it immediately. But as long as people know what's going on and that it's movement's happening, they're generally fine with that. It's whenever they're told or ignored or felt like they're being ignored, that's when issues happen and problems happen, right? Verify that once things have been implemented and testing's happened, that full functionality is actually happening. A lot of times what I do is I will call them, if it happened in the morning, that afternoon, and the next morning, walk by, just make sure everything's good to go and everything's still working fine. I won't waste a lot of their time, just, want to confirm that everything's still okay. And then implement preventive measures if applicable, like for instance, if it's updates on a software that shouldn't be updated, maybe block that software from being updated from that point on. And IT can do that. You can go in the software settings or Go into Windows settings, if it's a Windows update you want to block. And then document findings and actions and outcomes of those findings once you've figured out if it works or doesn't work. So, asking questions, the answers will help identify the problem. Avoid jumping to conclusions. Pay attention to the users, systems, and network behaviors. Pay attention to error message. A lot of error messages will have like numbers in them and letters. Write those down. What I generally do is take pictures of them with my phone because I won't be able to remember them, or I might not have the paper to write down. So I'll just take a picture of it while I'm there. That way I can go back to my desk and search it, or on my phone and search it. And then treat each symptom uniquely, and that helps the end user too, if they know that you're really concerned and wanting to help them. If it's like, oh, I see this all the time, it's no big deal, that doesn't help them at all. Okay, it is a big deal to them, so don't ever say that. And so make them feel like it is unique to them, and so it might not be unique to you, but you treat it like that, okay? You treat it like it is unique. Then determine the scope of the problem. Once you figure out what's going on and all the issues around there, things have been changed. The scope are how many users are affected in that network segment. Narrow down the time frame when it happened. Okay, it was working from 9 to noon, but after lunch, things just went haywire and it's not working anymore. I'm not being able to print anymore to my printer. It was working up to lunch and now it's not working. Okay, is it that way with everybody? You find out, no, it's just that one person. Okay, so generally it's going to be isolated to that computer and that connection to that printer from that computer. It could be a number of things. It could be drivers. Could be the fact that the drivers are wiped out. It could be the fact they've set the default printer to something different than what it should be. I've seen that happen. But you're narrowing the scope basically as you're troubleshooting the scope to eliminate causes, pointing to others or other issues that might be around. And then continuing on with the problems and symptoms, taking time to troubleshoot correctly, ask specific questions like, for instance, can you show me exactly what you did to make this error happen, or what you did that happened when it didn't print or whatever, and watch them do it. Watch them actually do it. And because a lot of times they'll be kind of rambling about stuff, and you want to watch exactly what they're doing while they're talking. And I think a lot of times end users don't realize when they do something, and they might click something in the wrong place, or, you know, an example today was somebody deleted an app from their taskbar, and that was a major deal. The shortcut from, on the taskbar on the bottom of the computer was deleted. Where'd it go? Let me just walk you through. That's what I said. Let me just walk you through how to re-add it. Can I do that? So yeah, oh, that'd be great. Let's start up the app. Okay, do you see it? Yeah. Right click on it, add it to the Windows taskbar. Okay, did it add it? Okay, let's shut it down, make sure it's still there. Awesome, they were all excited. Okay, so but they were literally at bent shape. They were like over the edge because their taskbar icon was gone. Who moved it? Who moved it was the first question. Okay, but they were happy at the end, so that's what matters, and the problem was solved. Discovering time and frequency of problems may reveal more subtle network problems. Like, for instance, you find out at noon that nobody can do anything on the internet. Okay, might be a switch is going bad. Might be the fact that maybe up to that week everything's fine. Might be the fact that something's changed in the outside connections coming in from the cable connection or whatever connection you have coming in the internet. It also could be the fact that a server that your internet runs upon is needing restarted. It might be really, really slow and causing a lot of issues, sucking up a lot of bandwidth. So a lot of different issues could cause it. Then I identify the affected problem area, and then when you finally narrow scope down, identify where it's at individually, a group of individuals, whatever, then you can begin going through the troubleshooting steps which here's a little diagram on troubleshooting steps, identifying the affected area. And the triangles represent a yes-no algorithm, and the green squares represent what happens when they go to either yes or no. So first one is the problem limited to one user workstation? If it's yes, examine the individual workstations for problems, consider possible user error. Okay? What if it's no? Is the problem limited to the department and one group? Yes. Examine the work group segment, server, group, router. If it's no, is the problem universal? We'll say no. Examine the affected user and workstations more closely. How are they similar? Do the workstations use the same type of hardware? We'll say yes. Let's look at the NIC cards, the cabling, and things like that for problems. So you can actually, you're not going to probably carry a sheet of paper like this with you, but you're going to be thinking of stuff like this as you logically are looking at each individual case. On the scope of the problem, have the devices ever worked properly before? Was the printer working before lunch? Yeah, it was. Okay. Did it appear in the last hour or day? Well, no, it was working great before lunch, but right after lunch, it's when it stopped working. And so where it says, did the symptoms appear in the last hour or day? Yes. Find out what changed in the network. Consider possible problems. So in this case, it might be the fact that the printer's turned off. Could be they've changed the default printer from the printer they normally print to something else. Okay? Two possible solutions. So you're going to try the easiest one first, which is let's see if your default printer's set up right. And lo and behold, you find out they've got the default printer set to like, Microsoft Note or something, and that's why it doesn't print. So it's a simple fix to help. And, when they say, well, I don't remember doing that, say, hey, I do that all the time. That's what I tell people. It happens all the time. You could have right-clicked on something or whatever. No big deal. We'll just get it fixed and, get you on your way. And so a lot of times that, solves or calms their nerves, but a lot of times it doesn't. And, all you can tell them is we really can't determine how it was changed, but we know it was changed from the original default to this one. If it happens again, this is what I always tell people, and this helps. If it happens again, let me know, and I'll come and help you. But we'll figure it out. Because, one thing you don't want to say is, well, I really don't know what happened, but it's fixed now, so all I can tell you is probably you did it. You just forgot about it. You don't want to say that, You just don't even touch it. You just say, okay, well, if it happens again, contact me and we'll figure it out. Something like that. And so that they're like, oh, okay, I can do that. And so that way they don't feel stupid, and you've given them an out already by saying that. Like, okay, something else could have caused it. Even though in the back of your head, more than likely they did it themselves on accident. But you're not going to beat that dead horse, right? Because you're going to basically be in a box to your desk being walked out and probably within a bed or something. And so I've seen people do that. And so, just use common sense. Questioning users, identifying the problems, ensure that human error is not the source, like I already mentioned. Watch the user if possible. Use remote desktop, like we're using here. Use VNC or whatever. Ask what appears on the screen. Use methodical approach. I've always found it's best to go to the user's desk, personally. The desktop software I don't like to use because it's too impersonal, and they don't really get much out of it. It doesn't seem like you're really doing anything. Even though you are, it doesn't seem like you are. So by going there and watching them, you're doing something. You're watching them, right? And a lot of times that helps. Like you care enough to get out from your cubicle and go walk over and help them. Determine if anything's changed. Be aware of recent changes, or even like I talked about, electrical changes, any changes whatsoever that can pinpoint to the problem. Possible actions if a network change has happened, correct it. Sometimes the best solution, it could be a restart of a server. It could be an update that blew things out. Roll it back. Reverse it. And usually less risky and less time consuming to reverse or roll back an update that cause problems. Or I've seen it happen more times than none. I was on a Windows update for a server, it caused some issues. And then network change records, track what's changed and then make records available to all staff members in IT. Let them know, okay guys, I changed this last night. If there's any problems, let me know. Because if you don't tell them that, you know, and I find out again, I do email, but I also verbalize it because a lot of times people don't read their email. They see an email, you get emails all day long, right? But if you verbalize something to somebody, it sticks in their mind. That way later that day, if something happens and they remember what you said, that you updated this server and it could be causing problems maybe. You know, you've tested as much as you can, but if it does cause problems, here's what's gonna happen. And you can contact me to help fix it. Recreating the symptoms, this is a tricky one. Sometimes in IT, we can't recreate it. We can't reproduce it. And so what do you do then? You keep trudging along. You don't let it bother you. You don't say, well, you know, weird, I can do it, so I don't know what's going on. Have a good day, you know. And I've actually heard people say that. They literally tried whatever it was the person said was going on their computer in IT, and then they tell the person that had the problem, I couldn't recreate it, so, must be your computer or something. And are you going to help is the next question they have in their head, you know? And so, you know, I've seen IT folks do that and just sit there and not do anything, and then the person walk out mad, like shaking their head like, why did I even come in here? So recreate the symptoms if you can. If you can't, keep going. Verify if it's on a physical layer, like the cabling, frame, pulled out from the wall, kicked off from the wall, whatever. Symptoms of physical layer, by the way, is these like noise. It's damaged cables, faulty NIC cards, loose or poorly crimped connectors on the RJ45s could be possible symptom of it. And then verify it's about the physical, and this is something you have to do yourself, not the end user. When you're asking users, that questions really is going to be from IT perspective, not from an end user perspective. But you could ask the network folks, you know, is there problems going on in the switches? Is there some problems going on in the server room? Why this person can't connect? Oh yeah, that switch is down. I forgot to tell you about it. Those are going to have a problem. They might just forgot to tell you about it. And so, okay. So what do? You go to that person, say, we're working on it. We're you know, Dan's working on it or Bob's working on it or whatever. They're aware of it, and that's what's going on. And that's what's going to happen sometimes. Sometimes IT doesn't communicate like they should to one another as well. But from an end user perspective, you don't let them know that. You just say, hey, we found out there's a problem. The server's being, switches or what I generally use is the server's being worked on. They don't give me details. As soon as things are up and going, we'll come by and let you know. We're doing all call on the overhead and let you know what's going on. And more than likely, when you tell them that, they're like, okay, it's time to chit chat then. Get up from their desk and start talking and doing whatever, right? Can't work on computers, so whatever it is they want to do. But again, communicating to them what's going on. Verifying things are connected properly. Making sure there error message, no error messages. If there are, consider them. Note changes in operating system. Determine if problem is repeatable. Find out who's affected and narrow them down. And on this one, it's just verifying physical connectivity. Like this one's talking about, is it plugged in? Is it properly inserted in the NIC card? Things like that. So just check that. That's a simple step. When you're testing your theory, whatever that theory might be, from hardware, software, whatever, make sure that, this is a good point, that complicated problems require effort and analysis. If it's a complicated issue, it's going to take time. And that makes sense, right? But from the end user perspective, they don't care. They just got to get back to work. And so sometimes you might have to give them a loaner computer, loaner laptop, to kind of skimp along till you get it fixed, or let them know it's going to be, if that's impossible to do, meaning its entire network is having a problem, it might be just communicating to them what's going on and saying, this is our best estimate and we'll keep you updated on an hourly basis what's going on. That way they kind of know, okay, IT's on top of it. They're going to let us know what's going on, and people can work with that. Okay. Example of approaches is you could use, and as far as network goes, a cable testing tool, check to make sure the NIC is seated properly, use a wireless analyzer, follow cables to verify connectivity. Generally, though, on my experience, it's not generally a cable issue. It's generally like from the switch level or the server level, and somebody's just literally went around and start kicking stuff, which, maintenance could kick a cord. I'm not saying they can't, but it generally doesn't happen too often. But I have seen it happen, but not too often. When you're testing theories, also make sure that the testing theory may end up solving the problem. Like, it might be a switch problem. It might be a user permission problem. It could be a NIC configuration problem. A whole bunch of different types of problems that you fix by, solving it, that theory, figuring out that theory and testing it and solving it. Now, escalating is, I mentioned earlier about asking colleagues with more experience. That's a good one. But escalating could also be the software vendor or outside resources like Entree or somebody to come in to help if you need to. Here at the college, we've had to have Entree here multiple times to help for different things, for installations, troubleshooting, whatever. That's what they're there for. Thai Comics, any company that's a network vendor or network help vendor, an IT help vendor like them is going to be helpful to you to have on speed dial to come over and help you out. They do cost money, but it's worth the investment if you need it. And so help desk analysis or analysts are also important, making sure they're proficient in just basic stuff like, how to get around the computer, networking stuff. They don't have to be a network technician, but, basic networking skills. First level support, meaning they're definitely people person. They like talking to people, calming them down by listening to them, repeating the problem back. That's number one way to calm somebody down. So understand you can't print. I know it's important for you to print because you got stuff to do. When was it working last? Oh, was it working before lunch? Okay. Well, we'll make sure and get Joe right on that to make sure what's going on and figure out what's going on. So he'll be down in just a moment. Okay, that's great. So you've repeated back the problem, then you're immediately putting some steps to it immediately, and that helps. Network specialist is an area of second level support, more hardware, configurations, things like that. Help desk coordinator, third level support, they're more of the manager type, supervisor type that does scheduling, make sure all the areas are manned. And this is going to be for larger organizations. A lot of the IT shops won't have the coordinator level, the third level one. Can't afford it. They're not going to have a person in that level. More likely around here, you're only going to have first, second level support. And so that's it. That's all you're going to have. And a lot of times that second and third level is all one position, right? And so if you are a manager or supervisor, you're also doing second level support as well. And then following procedures and whatever those escalation procedures are for software, hardware, whatever the case may be. Everything you have in-house has generally will have some type of warranty or some type of service agreement to where you can get help from that hardware vendor or software vendor, and that's where you pay the money for, and they're usually pretty expensive anyway, so might as well use them. Consider how on the action plan is the next one, establishing a plan of action to resolve the problem. Consider how a solution affects the users. And this is important because I've seen a lot of times people fix something in one area and break it in other areas. Oh, I didn't know that update would do that. Well, it's working for this person, but yeah, everybody else in the building now can't do this, right? Oh, I didn't even know that. We weren't aware of that. And that's where testing is important. Testing before deployment is very important. I don't know how many times I've seen IT, and we're the ones that do this, implement a solution before testing it thoroughly, and it really wreaks havoc on productivity, morale, things of that nature. Yeah.
Chuck, weren't you saying too that when Microsoft, they issue these security updates and patches, a lot of times they're sent out based on like a large client, like
Yeah.
IBM or something needs it, so, and then everyone will use the patch and then it'll screw up something.
Yep,
in there.
and that's why I'm not in the school of thought, a lot of IT folks aren't either, in the school of thought of, just because a patch or an update's out there does not mean you need it, okay? More than likely, it's a ladder that you don't need it, okay? Unless it's a critical security patch that's critical to the OS, you don't need it. Because a lot of times, you're right, if you apply a patch, it can cause havoc on your network, on your hardware, on your software. And so, like here on campus, none of the PCs on campus can go to Microsoft's website to update. It's blocked. Doesn't happen.
I was gonna say, because now, especially with Windows 10, Microsoft pushes a lot of those updates down automatically,
Exactly, right.
unless you block it from
Yep.
accessing them.
Yep, and we block it from the firewall to where it can't come down. And what they do here is they test it on over a period of time, and then they generally only update on the Microsoft stuff, the cumulative security patches. And those are the ones that have to do with the OS itself, not really unique cases type stuff. And generally, those only happen like once a year, generally. Now, there are times where, say, a security patch comes out that Microsoft finds a back door or something. Those types are different stories, and they're going to roll those out for sure. But for the most part, 99.9% of the time, just because an update's out there doesn't mean it's being updated on every computer and server immediately. Not going to happen. No, because I've seen way too many bad things happen in that environment doing it that way. Now, there are some IT folks that believe that you should apply, if there's a problem, it's because you don't have all the updates. I don't believe that. That's not true. That's not a true statement. Because I've seen it cause a lot of problems with, and the reason it is here's one reason why. From a developer standpoint, which I do a lot of developing, when you develop an application on any machine, regardless of what it is, that machine has certain software, say it's in a Windows machine, that you're working on at the time to do into testing and all that good stuff and publishing, and you finally publish it to the App Store. Well, when, let's say a year from that point you published it, Microsoft pushed out 20 updates to whatever. Well, let's say number 20 affected something in your software that wasn't there when you developed it, and so you couldn't foresee it being there, and now your software doesn't work. And you saw that happen, by the way, whenever different operating systems came out, like Windows 10, Windows 8, softwares just wouldn't work, or they'd open up and then crash. Like, what? What happened here? There was enough changes made in certain areas in the operating system that caused software not to work. And so that's why you'll see IT very slow to moving any operating system. Like right now, most IT departments are still on Windows 7. They have not moved from Windows 7. They probably won't for a while. There's not many businesses on Windows 8 and Windows 10. Most businesses are still on Windows 7, right? They're out of XP because it's expired on service agreement, but the next one after XP is Windows 7, the most stable version, and that's where most IT departments are at right now. And it's going to be a while probably before, as globally IT departments move to a newer version of Windows. That makes sense? Consumers always generally have newer versions of operating systems than businesses do, by the way. That's fairly normal, okay? Just because of the nature of the beast with software and multiple softwares, and because some of these companies are working on software that's 10 years old, 20 years old, and 6 months old. So you have to have a system that works with all of that. And so it's a fine line of, you have to walk a lot of times, but there are trade-offs. And that's what the next one talks about is the scope and trade-offs. The scope is assessing a solution scope before implementing. Wait if it's not an emergency. That's a very hard one to do sometimes. If you can find a workaround for somebody to get something done, I do that first before I push anything out globally. Because if you don't wait, in my estimation, you don't know all the story yet. You don't. You're not going to know it. And so, and a lot of times by waiting too, the problem that was here yesterday is no longer a problem next week. because of whatever reason. It could be an update that you find out that shouldn't have happened. You roll it back. Now, the solution you were going to do, you don't have to do anymore. So, waiting is not a bad thing unless it's emergency. And, end users, it's always an emergency, okay? It's always an emergency. And you want to let them know you're treating it like that too, even though you're going to do your due diligence to make sure all your ducks in a row before you push any solution out globally. Some trade-offs are the solution may restore functionality for one user group, but it may also remove functionality for another user group, okay? And there's trade-offs on pushing things out too quickly. Now, you can dot all your I's and cross all your T's and wait and do all that, and still at the end of the day, it's going to affect some people. And you're going to have to manually go through each one of those and fix it, right? That's going to happen for sure, all right? It's not, nothing's 100% all the time. And so, as much as I'd like to say it is, it's not. When it comes to security of establishing a plan and resolving it, be aware of security implementations or implications. Inadvertent removal of network access could happen. Resource privileges could be pulled if you change things before an upgrade or patch installation. Make sure you understand about unauthorized and authorized users, because sometimes on these updates and patches, they will literally change the dynamics of authorized access to certain applications. What used to get access as an administrator level after an update might get no access. And that's what I talked about earlier of apps that would start and it seemingly, or the splash screen shows up and then it just crash because access is not allowed. It's blocked somewhere in the system, in the operating system. Scalability of solution, position the network for future additions, enhancements, temporary fixes. Like I mentioned, organization will outgrow. And meaning at one point, a temporary fix is going to be outgrown. You're going to have to do something eventually. The Band-Aid's only going to last so long, right? Like for instance, people hopped along on Windows XP and still are, by the way. University of Madison, Wisconsin, still has Windows XP campus-wide. They pay $1.5 million a year to Microsoft for support for Windows XP. And they're not changing for another year. But they've looked at it like, okay, they've got a lot of R&D areas in there, research and development, that use old software, like Windows 95 software type stuff, and 16-bit software. And if you are running the latest version of Windows 10, 64-bit, it will not run a 16-bit application. And University of Madison, Wisconsin has a lot of R&D applications that are still old school 16-bit applications. And so because of that, they're waiting until these applications are either updated to a 64-bit app or a new software is found to replace that current software. But that takes some time to do. And so especially if these softwares are using are sometimes tied into grants or sometimes tied into whole programs that students are taking. So no telling what all of it's tied into. And so that's why Microsoft does make exceptions, and they do make the money. Okay, you want support? Yeah, you can get support, but you're going to fork over the money to do it. So there's a cost involved. So vendor information on plans, make sure you have all the documentation for online stuff. Make sure you have vendor phone support, who your vendor reps are, locally, regionally, nationally. And then consult with others. A lot of these vendors for applications will have user groups where you can go and join, like meetings, online meetings, face-to-face meetings. And a lot of these user groups will be focused on certain versions of the software, okay? And they'll have different user groups for each version, right? So if you're in version 8 software, it's going to be a different user group than the newest version 11 that they're on right now. Make sense? And so it just makes sense to be a part of that group, that when you have problems, you can reach out to them and get the help you need. Because more than likely, somebody else has had that same problem. So implementing the solution is basically time. You have to figure out when you're going to do it. It can be either short or long time. It requires patience and foresight and planning. And again, being slow and methodical about it as possible to correct things as you go along. And then problems causing catastrophic outages should be solved as quickly as possible. That makes sense, right? Like for instance, a email server goes down. Okay, that's catastrophic. That's got to be fixed now. So we've got to bring in some other outside resources to get this fixed, up and going within 24 hours, whatever. So you're going to need help outside yourself to get that done more likely, and that's a no-brainer. Following series of steps, making sure things are safe, reliable solution at the end. Large-scale fixes, you can roll out things in stages. So say this week we're going to do stage 1. Say, for instance, you lose a server and it has all of your user drives on it, okay? And maybe the backup failed the night before, and so you lost the whole night's backup, and everything people did on their local drives gone, right? And you have to go in and get a new server, new operating system installed, and start restoring the latest backup you had, and then going around, and you might have to do that in stages. Might have to say, an announcement, we're going to do last name A through N tonight, and then tomorrow we'll do O through Z to get that finished. And our backup that we have is, latest backup is this date and time. If you had anything in there past that date and time, we cannot restore it, period. And then you can do some follow-up stuff like, educational stuff like from now on, just to help from this not happening again as far as you losing data. If it's critical data, make sure you're saving it on the network drive for your department instead of your personal drive on your network. Because a lot of times departments are, normally end users are told to do that anyway, but a lot of times they don't. They'll just save it on their personal network drive versus the global network drive that's backed up all the time. Because just so you know, user drives aren't generally as high priority backup as network drives that drive data for the company, right? So, and end users, when they're hired, generally are told make sure and store all critical data there. So just re-educating them on that. Not to say you can't use your personal drive, but let's not put critical data in there. Or if you do put critical data, make sure and have a copy of that same data on the network drive, so we can get it restored quicker. So after that, you also verify the full system functionality, verify that the solution is complete, test it, determine if it's successful, evaluate user functionality by walking around, asking them how things are going, and then finally consider how these problems may be prevented in the future. Okay, an example would be we're turning off updates. End users should not be doing automatic updates. That's it. The Adobe update that just happened last night totally locked up the network, and things were down for half a day because of it. We had to roll back an update on everybody's computer. How can we solve that? Let's block the updates, and we'll manage the updates ourselves. It'll be more work from IT. There's packages that, by the way, allow you to push it globally to every computer from a central location, or you might have to go one by one, regardless, depending on the size of your company. Consider how similar problems may be prevented in the future, and again, discussing that after the implementations happened. And then record things. Make sure you record the symptoms, the cause, the solution. And recording can be done in a number of different areas. It can be used as an Excel spreadsheet. It could be a system, access database. Whatever it is you use, it really doesn't matter. It could be SharePoint. You record it. Just as long as it's recorded and documented. An example would be if you call Dell tonight with a Dell problem with a computer, and they ask you what the problem is, you will literally hear in the background a tech typing in exactly what you're saying. And they come back immediately with responses of what the solution could be, right? Where are they getting that from? A database. A database where over years of time, Dell has entered in user problems, user solutions. User problems, user solutions, right? And that's what you're doing in IT as well. Some system that allows you to do that. User problems, user solutions, and being able to access them for IT personnel. Other one that some bigger firms will have, a lot of the smaller, medium-sized won't have help desk software for call tracking because you only have 20 people in the business, right? But let's say you had, 150, 200, 400, 500 people, you're gonna need, and you have a lot of customer service type stuff coming in, some type of call tracking system where it's user-friendly, it's graphical, prompts for problem information, assigns unique problem number, a case number to a tech, like Dell, right? You call Dell, you have warranty on your laptop, here's the problem. They figure out, okay, you're gonna need your motherboard replaced. We have a technician who's gonna come out tomorrow and replace your motherboard at your house or at your place of business, depending on where the warranty is at. They do that all the time, by the way. And so if you have a business that has Dell computers, technicians are in there a lot of times fixing stuff, right? Through a call tracking system that keeps track of all of that. Supported services list like software, contacts is also important to find. And then following up with users who reported the problem to make sure that there's no other problems that came out from the fallout. Or they might also have a solution too. A lot of times I've seen where they say, hey, I think what caused it was this. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And you start talking to the other folks in that area, and it ends up being just a training issue to help them in a training, either it was a software or whatever. And the person that brought you the solution, a lot of times what I'll do is have them be a part of that training solution, and they actually become champions for those areas and can help IT out by training new people that come on board, things of that nature, where IT is not having to be the one doing all the training on things. Because a lot of times IT, we can fix stuff and figure out how to fix stuff, but we're not real good, and I don't think we should be in business of knowing the details of every unique area. The people in that area know the details. They work in that area all the time, right? So they should be the experts. We're just supporting them to do their job, really. And so, and it makes them feel good too when they're part of the solution as well after you follow up with them. One last slide here on when you're notifying others of changes. Depending on if it's global or not, it might just be an email to those affected users of what happened. Here's how we solved it. Here's some things we can learn from it. Change management system might also be another thing where an example on that would be a person gets fired, they get quit, they get hired. How are things handled in IT when that happens? Documenting, a lot of times things are triggered or should be triggered when change management occurs. And then minor modifications do not need to be recorded. The rule I've used over the years, if it's under 15 minutes, you don't need to record it. If it's under 15 minutes, you don't need to mess with recording it. Because there's some IT shops that literally record every minute you're working, what you're doing, why you're doing it, okay? If it's a problem that's under 15 minutes it takes to solve it, you don't need to document it. That's what my rule's always been. Now on the handout I gave you guys, the steps are what we just went over. Identify the problem, step 1. Identify the scope of the problem, make sure it's not, make sure it's isolated to them or others around them. 3, establishing what changes have been made to the network. 4, determining what the most probable cause is of the problem. 5, implementing a solution. Now, after you implement a solution, you might figure out that's not working, and you might start over again. Step 1, keep going until it finally works. Test the solution on 6. 7, what potential effects of this solution will happen? Maybe other things that you didn't think of initially you can put in here. Like it affected an area not being able to log in or something because we changed the script to log in or something. And then documenting what the solution is on number 8. And so that's a real rough guide on troubleshooting, by the way. So